Welcome. Hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. Stories that connect us using literature, language, and neuroscience to build belonging. We'll just wait while we have several of us that are logging in. Again, welcome so much. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Hello. Again, this is Stories That Connect Us using literature, language, and neuroscience to build belonging. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Toya Hancock. I'm a regional engagement specialist with Harmony Academy, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's webinar. Again, thank you so much for joining this afternoon. We host these monthly webinars to bring together thought leaders in education to share topics to inspire the best teaching and support social, emotional, and academic learning. Opinions and content in this presentation are that of the featured guest speakers and may not be a direct representation of Harmony. You will receive a recorded version after the webinar for you to watch again and also to share with colleagues. Today's objectives. Our audience and viewers will explore what neuroscience tells us about how nervous system safety and regulation pave the way for authentic engagement, connection, and belonging. How children's literature opens meaningful conversations about lived experiences and connection. Ways to strengthen relationships, reflection, and classroom connection with literature and Harmony resources. We're going to meet our esteemed presenters. We are so glad that they are joining us today. Carol Jago, Associate Director, California Reading and Literature Project. Dr. Leslie Anway, Director of Resilient Schools, Pima County Schools. Welcome, and we're going to learn a little bit more. So, Carol Jago has taught English in public schools for 32 years and serves as the Associate Director of the California Reading and Literature Project and has received numerous recognitions for her work. We are so pleased to have you. Welcome, Carol. Dr. Leslie Anway, the Director of Resilient Schools for Pima County School Superintendent's Office, has served in the educational field for 30 years and advocates for the healing-centered environments that prioritize both student and staff well-being. She is the author of the new book, Transform the Felt Safety Toolkit, which we have a special treat. A lucky attendee will receive a copy of the book today. So again, welcome and thank you so much. We're going to meet our panelists. Christy Fernandez, 4th to 8th grade teacher, Reno, Nevada. And Anderson Manuel, first grade teacher, Sudbury, Massachusetts. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Christy, a 4th to 8th grade teacher in Reno, Nevada, has been working in the educational field for over 18 years and is dedicated to supporting students, families, and colleagues. Welcome, Christy. Anderson Manuel, an elementary teacher for the past 27 years in Massachusetts, holds a master's in early childhood education and loves mentoring new teachers. Welcome, Christy and Anderson. So we're going to start off the Harmony way. With a quick connection card, one of our components of our Harmony curriculum, one of my favorite components. We're going to get to know our presenters and panelists a little more. So, what would you like to learn how to do and why? And how could you go about learning it?
I'm going to
Any?
start.
Okay,
I'm going to
great.
start.
Thank you,
So,
Christy.
as a teacher, I love learning new things for my students. So, this was a tough question for me because it made me realize that I had to think about a little deeper in this. And for me, was photography. I want to learn to be a better photographer. I want to make sure I can capture memories and the stories of all the places that I've been able to visit. So, for that, I am going to be taking classes. I have a coworker who is an amazing photographer. So, she is going to teach me this summer. So that is something that I want to learn, and that's the steps that I'm going to follow to learn is photography.
Love it. Love it. Thank
And
you.
I'm just keen to learn from Leslie about the neuroscience of safety. It's something I know nothing about, and I'm just really keen to broaden my perspectives in that area.
Right. And the how is right now. That's how you're going to learn it, right? Right now. Yes.
Okay, well, I will say that I would really like to learn to play the guitar. I used to play piano. I actually played keyboard in a band for a real brief moment. Um, but I've always wanted to play the guitar, and it's something that I've just always put on the back burner. It's always gone back shelf, back shelf. And so my how would be, well, I just gotta sign up for lessons.
That's great. Wonderful. And I saw Anderson, you were getting excited. Do you play the guitar? Or is that something you want to learn to play?
Hold on. That is something that I do want to learn to play. Actually, a friend of mine was moving to somewhere else and he was getting rid of a bunch of guitars that he has. So I do have a guitar and he's been staring at me and collecting dust. And I'm like, you know what? I need to start. So this summer, I am going to, I have already registered for a online class and I am going to start. And also too, I have a friend of mine who's an accomplished guitarist and he promised me that that I do need the one-to-one experience with someone instead of just looking at it on screen. So I'm looking forward to learning that this summer.
Oh, that's excellent. Wonderful. Yes, great. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that and inspiring us as well to learn new things. So we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Leslie, who's going to talk to us about what neuroscience tells us about belonging and engagement. So, Dr. Leslie, if you'll share just a little bit about your new book. And again, a lucky winner will receive a coffee at the close of this webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Toya, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really my honor and pleasure to be with you here today. A little bit about my book. I wrote this book because I was just hearing so much about feelings of not feeling safe in spite of things being put in place for safety. And so this is really the book is designed around 5 core principles that promote psychological safety. And I have included just a little bit of an author anecdote, a little author snippet from my own experience, and then a practitioner snippet as well at the beginning of each chapter. And each chapter also has reflection questions at the end. So this is really designed for individuals, for teams, for organizations to work on creating that felt safety within their organizations. And I do have 2 universities here in Arizona who will be using this as part of their curriculum for the upcoming school year. So very exciting. All right, next slide. All right, so we're talking about belonging today and how literature is an effective lever to open windows into belonging pathways. So I am going to talk about the neurobiology behind getting ourselves to the part in our brain and in our nervous systems that allows that to happen. As educators, it's our goal to help our students become connected, to become educated, to become literate human beings. But in order to get there, we really have to consider some of our neurobiology and the distinctly sequential processing of the brain. So the very first and primary thing that our nervous system asks when we enter any new space is, am I safe? And this largely happens at the subconscious level. So we usually aren't even aware that it's happening. When you joined this webinar today, your nervous system was already assessing, is this a safe place? Is there some type of a threat? Is there danger? And as humans, we're hardwired for this beautiful function from our earliest days on the planet. Okay, next slide. So what this subconscious sense is, it's our neuroception. You may have heard of that before and you may not have. It is one of our senses. And so it will kick in and ask immediately, is this dangerous? Is it life-threatening? Is it safe? We can't turn it on. We can't turn it off. It is a subconscious function like breathing, but we can become more aware of it. We can become more aware of when it's actually turning on, when it's activated, and when it might be overactivated. So students and adults who've experienced adversity or trauma, they might have an overactivated sense of neuroception. And I would say after the pandemic, which really was a collective trauma, a heightened neuroception has really become more of the norm. And so what happens is subconsciously, our neuroception kicks in, and then we perceive it. And so when we perceive, am I safe? Am I not? Knowing that if we're more sensitized, our perception of this safety might be a little skewed toward, no, it's dangerous. Something in this is dangerous for me. And then that is going to determine our state. So that's going to determine our nervous system state. Are we calm? Are we activated? Are we in fight or flight? And then we're going to have some feelings or behavior around that. And then we're going to create a story. And this can all happen in the blink of an eye. We can go from neuroception to story, boom. And that's how wonderful our brains are and our nervous systems are. But a lot of times we don't even realize all of this is happening. And so suddenly we have a story that we have created in our mind that, okay, I need to leave because something in here doesn't feel good to me, so I need to leave. And so becoming more aware of that process can really help us. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next slide. So the brain processes in a sequential manner. So everything that we see, hear, observe goes in through our brainstem. And so that part of our brain is the survival state. That's the part of our brain that's saying, is it safe? Then once that has kind of been settled and regulated, then we can move up into the limbic area of our brain. That is where engagement lives. That's where social competency lives. That's where connection and belonging live. And then once we kind of have that a little bit established, we can move on up into the cortex. And the cortex is where learning happens. It's where memory happens. It's where creativity happens, where problem solving happens. But it does work sequentially. So a lot of times if we try to jump straight to learning, but these bottom areas have not been regulated, and then it's not going to stick. Okay, go ahead and go through to the next slide. So I love this visual of a regulated versus a dysregulated nervous system, because establishing a sense of safety in our body and our nervous system has to come first. It's our neurobiology. Our biology doesn't really allow us to skip that step. And so if you look at on the left, if you look at the dysregulated, you can see that brain, most of the energy is in the brainstem because it's working really hard to regulate the brain. There's a little bit of limbic function happening. And so if we try to do a connection activity or we try to do something where we are having students engage with one another, there's some capacity there, but there is not full capacity for that to happen. And you can see there's very, very little in the cortex. And so the learning that would happen in this really dysregulated state is going to be very small. Retention is not going to be there. Versus a regulated brain on the right-hand side, because we really don't need a lot of energy happening in our brainstem. And so that in a regulated brain, I'm exerting very little energy to control my basic functions. Now I've got a whole bunch of energy to be able to devote to connection, engagement, and of course, then learning. So I want to point out here too that dysregulation can be driven by both external and internal circumstances. So internally, that dysregulation can be driven by if you've got unexpressed emotions, maybe you have stories that are running around in your head. It can also even come from the enteric nervous system, which is part of the nervous system in your gut. And so I do want to point that out as well. It's not always external things that are causing this dysregulation in our nervous systems. Okay, next slide. So how can we prime the brain for connection and for learning? These are some of the ways. So when we regulate together at a tier 1 level in a proactive way, it can really level the playing field for our students. It primes their brains, it calms the nervous systems so they can access the parts of the brain that allow them to connect, to relate, to belong. And a lot of times when regulation is done in the classroom, it's done in a reactive way. Things like calming corners, which are fantastic. And it's been such a joy to see those pop up all over. They're great, but a lot of times those are done in a reactive way and not proactive. So maybe we won't need the calming corners as much if we can all regulate together at a tier 1 level. So co-regulation, we need to have our staff regulate. It's just important for our staff to do regulation, maybe more important than our students. So, and it's really best when you can all do it together. I've done trainings for security staff. I've done trainings for transportation staff and on their regulation, and they have reported calmer buses. They reported calmer interactions, fewer incidents happening, simply from them regulating their own nervous system. And so what happens with this co-regulation is there's this emotional attunement that happens. And that co-regulation or emotional attunement is really what creates the path to true safety. And of course, the clear pathway to then to the limbic system and to the cortex. So some of these other ones, there's a whole variety. And in this webinar, we don't really have the time to go through all of them. But we're going to practice stillness in a little bit. Stillness is one of the best ways that you can regulate. It only takes 3 to 5 minutes. And so just doing 3 to 5 minutes of any of these things, breathing techniques, mindful drawing, orientation and grounding, tapping, there's a whole variety that you can do, but doing them proactively and doing them for 3 to 5 minutes and consistently really is the biggest thing. All right, so let's go ahead and do some practice. So we're going to do a little brain break now, what I call a nervous system reset. So as I mentioned earlier, the practice of stillness is a skill. And the beauty of it is that it's available to everybody, one and all, no cost. And stillness and presence are actually considered by many to be 2 of the most important meta skills. So the practice of stillness allows us to access our center, our true authentic self. It allows us to slow down and stop the urgency of go, 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 do, do, do. And I can tell you there are people who think they're not able to slow the barrage of thoughts in their mind, or maybe that the kids won't be able to practice stillness. They can. It's a skill. We just need to practice it. And then the easier that we are able to go between busyness back to stillness and back into our day again, the more resilient our nervous systems actually are, and the more resilient that we are. So let's go ahead and start with a little grounding, and then we'll do a few breaths together, and then we'll practice 1 full minute of stillness. And during the stillness, if it helps you, you can say a repeated phrase or word. It can kind of help sometimes with keeping some of the cycling thoughts at bay. Anything like I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm here. Another thing you can do is you can hum. If you're in a space where you can do that, because humming not only really quickly moves our nervous system into a calm parasympathetic state, it also increases the amount of nitric oxide in your body, which is simultaneously calming and healing. Or you can actually tap on your thymus gland, which helps tone your vagus nerve, and it kicks in that parasympathetic. So I'm going to ask you to put down anything that you might be holding in your hands right now. Just feel your feet on the floor. Feel your back against the chair if you're sitting in one. And put your hands on your lap, either down or put them up, facing up. And close your eyes if it feels safe and comfortable to do so. And now let's take in 1 deep breath together. Hold it. And then release. And let's take 1 more deep breath in. And hold. And release. And I'm going to ask you now to find that space inside of you, that inner sanctuary that's always there, but it frequently gets covered up in our day-to-day busyness. And in this space, there are no obligations, no pressure, no need to rush, no worries about the future or the past. Just being present in your body at this moment and this space is enough. And so I'm going to give you 60 seconds now, and I'll let you know when the 60 seconds are up. All right, beautiful. Thank you all for participating in that little nervous system brain break reset with me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leslie. That was wonderful. Such a wonderful reminder of what we need, right? Um, and so now that we are feeling grounded and we feel safe, let's now turn it over to Carol, who's going to talk to us about the power of a good book.
Leslie opened her presentation by talking about how literature is an effective lever for achieving these feelings of safety. So I'd like to talk about how and why that this is the case. Could we go to the next slide, please? In many classrooms, many children don't feel safe talking about their emotions. Many teachers don't feel entirely safe bringing up such topics. Many parents feel that maybe teachers are prying too much into their children's lives. Well, one way to solve this problem is, instead of talking about themselves, to talk about characters and the decisions that characters are making, and the interrelationship, the personal relationships in a story. And what this allows for is an exploration intellectual exploration, even from small children, that doesn't require them to move into those spaces where they might feel less safe. Now, often do students end up talking about themselves? Yes, but it's not written into the curriculum. Sometimes we think of reading as a individual, solitary experience, but actually, when we read, we form connections with those characters. That the empathy we feel, it's real, and these connections can help children feel less alone. Help us begin to see how we do belong, what we can do to belong. As they read about a character who's struggling or who is kind of a jerk, a bully, we see the effects of that on others. Next slide, please. And it's that reading allows students to develop a social imagination that then they can use to picture various selves. I don't mean in a weird way, various selves. I just mean other ways that they might be happy, other ways that they might feel more comfortable, feel safer, be able to feel that regulation that Leslie helped all of us come to, and also to imagine a more just society. And once they begin to imagine different possibilities, they're stronger, they're better prepared to build the ones they want to see. I think of like reading muscles, but these are also belonging muscles. These are all also the arms that we're going to put around one another in a classroom intellectually. Next slide, please. And I want to say very clearly, I'm not talking about, so this is an add-on. This is the frosting on the cake. No, just as Leslie was describing, if students are dysregulated, they're not going to be able to learn. They're going to struggle to read. And we have evidence. I'm not going to go into it now, but every time you open the paper, there's another story about how students aren't reading. They're all on their phones. They're all on their screens. NAEP reading scores in 4th, 8th, and 12th grade are abysmal. And so what we have here, in my opinion, can be a virtuous cycle, having students doing more reading, which helps them with feeling safe in the classroom and regulation, but at the same time, it's increasing their ability to read. Because honestly, you're never going to get good at reading if you don't read. It's just the way I'm never going to get good at swimming because I don't like to get in the water. And so it can work at both levels. Next slide, please. So I'd like to give you an example of two books. I love this book, My Pappy Has a Motorcycle, by Isabel Cantero, and illustrated by Zeke Pena. It's a story of a little girl, Daisy, who goes on a bicycle ride with her dad after work. And what you feel as you share this book with students is how grounded she is, how she feels, she knows she belongs inside her family, inside her neighborhood, inside society. She takes joy and pleasure. And this is a community where a lot of change is going on. Her father works in construction, reading between the lines as an adult. The areas, it's set in close to the border in California. A gentrifying neighborhood and changing. But she celebrates this as she goes on this ride with her wonderful father. We need books like this, I believe, that demonstrate joy, the joy that comes from knowing you belong, feeling grounded in your world. I also think that sometimes we don't bring in enough nonfiction into our classrooms. And so in Yoshi and the Ocean by Lindsay Moore, she tells a story, true story, of a loggerhead sea turtle who was born with a damaged shell early on, saved by an aquarium, and he spent the next 20 years in an aquarium in Cape Town. Was their best exhibition ever. But then they decided Yoshi was bigger, was stronger, the shell was fine. They put a tracker on her and put her back into the wild. Next slide, please. Look at the distance Yoshi traveled to get back to where she belonged. It took almost 3 years. It's something like 2,500 miles. And I also want to point out something here too is most teachers are women. It's just the nature of our profession. And most women, I know this is a gender stereotype, really like fiction. That's why we share so much fiction with students. But there are a lot of boys in our classrooms who would really rather read about real things. And they would rather read in a different way that's not quite linear. Look at all the components of this page. So this is a double page spread in the book. You learn geography, you learn about oceanography, you learn about graphs, you learn about how to read a table like that explains. We need to make this more normal, more common in the books that we share with our students. Next slide, please. And I'll just close one with this wonderful book by Raoul III. Vamos, let's go read. The students who read more actually know more. Not because they're keeping notes, not because they have a reading log, not because they have flashcards. They're just absorbing more about flora and fauna and history and culture and everything, and words. And then students who know more are actually able to do more in their lives. They're more resilient. They understand adversity. They understand that heroes can triumph. Thank you for the time. I think this is an important thing for us to think about, how books can be that lever to helping students find safety in the classroom.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Leslie and Carol. And I am so excited to hear from Christy and Anderson their reflections from our educators today. Let's first talk about Dr. Leslie's presentation. So, Christy and what whole class regulation practices do you use to prime the brain for connection and learning?
I love to do brain work, and I like to do it as a whole class. So I agree with you that the calm space is a great place for a student to go, but the whole classroom should be a calm place for all our kids. So I love that you said that we should do it daily, and we should be not just doing it in the classroom, but extending it outside. So in the lunchroom, in the bus, everywhere.
Thank
So
you.
brain breaks.
Yeah, that's good. Anderson?
I thank you so much for sharing those wonderful insights. But as a first grade teacher, I do it in the morning, and as a way to bring the classroom together as a community. We do that every morning, and we share a card. But also, to the best way that I see that it works is that when they come back from lunch, and when they come back after a loud space, and where they need that, it's usually right after lunch, where it is the second half of the day, and we have to refocus because we still have other things that we need to do. And I find that when kids come together and we as a whole community do a brain break, where we, for 1 minute, actually for 3 minutes, we do an activity that really gets them to focus and to be centered. I find that kids tend to be much more calmer. Kids tend to be much more at ease, and also kids tend to regulate their emotion much more effectively than when I don't do it. I feel that it is something important that kids need to know, that when their body's out of control, that there are some strategies that they can use to get themselves in control. So the goal of these activities that I do in the classroom is not only for them to use it when they are in the classroom, but also that they can use it when they are at home or anywhere that they feel like their body's out of control. And I think these are skills that kids need so they can be better member of our society in the future.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Anway, anything to add?
Oh, I would just say, wow, I'm that just warms my heart that you both are doing already some of this amazing work, and also seeing the value of doing it together with the kids. How phenomenal, right? And I absolutely recommend, because our nervous systems go up and they go down and they go up and down during the day. I absolutely recommend doing it throughout the day, after transitions, maybe after lunch, because the beginning of the day is fantastic. But they're gonna need it again.
That's so good that you share that. That's good. Thank you so much. So, Christy and Anderson, now I'd love to hear your thoughts from Carol's inspiring presentation. So, how do you both increase a sense of belonging with children's literature?
So for me, I work in a bilingual school, so it's very, very important that everything that I use with my students to read aloud, it shows that we are not in just one specific world, that there's different diversity around us. And my class is represented with different diversity. So I need to make sure that the books that I use represents them, represents other cultures, other points of views, and that they feel that they're not the only ones that have problems in life. We all do. So it's very important for me to find, specific and special messages in the books that I read with them. So literature and diversity is very important in my classroom.
Excellent. Anderson.
For myself, I live in a community where 98% of the students that I teach are Caucasians. And one of the things that I wanted to do when I became an elementary teacher, because I remember as a student myself, I felt that in elementary school, coming from another country, coming into the United States when I was in elementary school, I don't feel like I was represented at all. So one of the things that I try to do in my class and that I make it mandatory that I do as an educator is that if you walk into my classroom, you will see books of different color shades, regions, faces, languages, because I feel like when a student see themselves in a book, then they feel like they are seen, they are valued. And I think that's a very important thing. The simple little things that we can do in the classroom when we read a story about their culture, when we read a story about themselves, even a book that portrays their skin color, it makes a big difference. It makes them feel seen and makes them feel part of our community. And that's one of the things that I make sure that I do every single week, that I read a book, specifically when we have so many um, different cultures. In my school, we have kids from Lebanon, we have kids from Europe, we have kids from Asia. So what I try to do is that I try to find out at the beginning of the where they're coming from, and then I find a book that would really demonstrate who they are as a person, that demonstrate their culture or the way that they think or the way that they feel, so that other kids can see, not only so that they can see these kids and that they're an important part of our community.
Excellent. And we've gotten a lot of heart emojis going on. So it's definitely resonating with our audience. Carol, anything to
Books
add?
books open up the world to children. All of us live in a bell jar, if you will. This is where we are, and if we want to understand more than that, that's what books can bring in. So it can make a single child feel that they're part of a larger world, and at the same time, it can bring that larger world into the classroom.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, to any of our either of our panelists or presenters, so where can educators go to find resources to support this work?
Go to your library. That would be the first place to go. And if you don't have enough books, write grants. Good, look for them. We have such an amazing, we have so many authors that write amazing books about life skills and diversity. So, but I would say first start with your library. Harmony has amazing stories that show diversity as well in problems and resolutions. So there's a lot of books that we can use.
I also
Thank
think
you. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
award winners, like pay attention to who wins the Caldecott, the Newbery, and I think contemporary books are important.
Thank you so much. I love how Christy, a great segue into harmony for us. Thank you so much to Carol and Leslie, Christy and Anderson. You really shared some fabulous information and resources today. Christy, as you talked about harmony and what Harmony Academy can provide as well at no cost. We have our Harmony curriculum for pre-K through 6, Harmony Out of School Time, Harmony at Home, which is an app that we have, and also we have Harmony Professional Learning for the educator. And so we also want to share, we've got just a few minutes left, but we want to, as we're talking about this oh so important hot topic, right, of belonging, we want to share with you that we do have our new Belonging Together resources that are designed as a connection, as a connected experience that supports both strategy and capacity building within your district. And so each of the belonging strands, which I'll share on the next slide, begins with 3 personalized virtual workshops for district leaders. These sessions are capped at 20 participants. And in the sessions, you'll work with an industry expert, such as Carol, to design a customized action plan for creating a culture of belonging for your district. The focus of these intimate workshops are then expanded to your broader education community through expert-led webinars. And these sessions reach up to 200 participants, and they focus on specialized topics, helping build shared understanding, common language, and momentum around belonging. And finally, participants receive access to 3 Harmony Leader Certificate course licenses. And these provide ongoing professional learning that builds the knowledge and skills leaders need to promote healthy learning environments across schools and communities. And so I just want to highlight again strand 4. And this is reading as a pathway to empathy and belonging with Carol. So imagine more with Carol, right? This pathway shows how belonging and literacy reinforce one another using literature as a powerful way for students to feel seen, understood, and connected. It offers practical texts, prompts, and discussion strategies that embed belonging directly into strong literacy instruction rather than just adding another initiative. So again, thank you so much for joining. This has been absolutely fabulous. Time flies when you are having fun and learning lots of great information. And so if we can just hear just final thoughts before we close out, just final thoughts.
You know, in Britain, they also have literacy issues, and they did a study finding that compared with non-readers, readers are 35% more likely to say they do not feel lonely, and 32% more likely to say they do not feel anxious or depressed. That's good news.
It's great news. Yes, indeed.
And I just want to express my gratitude to my fellow presenters and panelists, and to you, Toya, and also to everybody who joined. I know some people are on spring break, and so thank you all for giving of your time. And I want to share this quote that I have from Sharon Salzberg, and it is: "The heartbeat of connection is discernible when we learn to get a little quieter to hear it." So I think that kind of ties some of these concepts together.
It does, and that's a perfect way for us to end. And we're going to end. This has been wonderful and fabulous. Thank you so very much to our presenters and panelists. And so, as we promised, a lucky attendee is going to receive Dr. Leslie's book and transform the felt safety toolkit. So, Amanda, if you will go ahead and share the lucky winner, and then Amanda will and reach out to the individual for their shipping address. And so, okay, very good. So this is exciting. Okay, ready? Ready? Congratulations, Artie Deering. Oh, but I pronounced that correct, Lee. So again, Amanda is going to reach out to you, Artie. You are the recipient of the brand new book, Transform the Felt Safety Toolkit. Again, thank you so very much for attending. Thank you to our presenters and our panelists. Thank you to our audience and viewers for all of your input in your chats and your emojis. And again, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. You'll see, remember, you will see a pop-up on your screen, yes, for the survey that will help us plan future webinars. So if you would fill that out for us, we appreciate your feedback.